Hello and welcome to Coconut Chats, everyone. Today you've got me, Harita, and I'm joined with Chris. How are you going, Chris?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Today we've got a guest from America. Tanushree is a mental health advocate and creator of a podcast called The Desi Condition. The focus of her mental health work is on the destigmatization of mental health in the South Asian diaspora and dissecting generational trauma. Her work largely comprises of podcasting, in which she scenario maps South Asians and their unique mental health and wellness journeys. Outside of podcasting, Tanushree has a background in mechanical engineering and industrial design. During the day, she uses her experience to inspire young people to reach their creative potential in the STEM fields as a high school math teacher. When she isn't writing, podcasting, or teaching maths, she can be found swimming, reading, or baking. And you can also follow her on the Desi Condition on Instagram under at the Desi Condition, or contact her at thedesicondition@gmail.com. So what she's doing is in some ways kind of similar to our podcast, but obviously on the other side of the world, which is so cool to see. Hi Tanushree, how are you going?
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me. I am, a gift from America. I am never going to refer to myself as anything else other than a gift from America now. I'm not a math teacher. Who cares? I'm not a podcaster. I'm just a gift from America. I love it.
So I started listening to your podcast maybe about a year ago. Like I was telling you before, I don't even know how I came across it, but I started listening to it and I just thought, oh my God, I love the content that she talks about and the people she interviews. So I guess I'd like you to tell our listeners what the Desi Condition podcast is all about.
Mm-hmm. So the Desi Condition podcast is an audio medium in which we try to explore what the Desi Condition is. And a lot of that comprises of the mental health and wellness aspect of our lives, particularly, I think you can probably relate to this too, but for us, it's a lot of the American experience of just being that bicultural person, but also having to deal with the mental health and having to sweep it under a rug, because the truth is that most people deal with mental health issues. Most people do, even if it's for a short amount of time or if it's a chronic thing, but we never talk about it. So that's something that I want to bring to the forefront, and some of that does stem from this biculturalness. Some of it just stems from a long history of not having proper mental health care or conversations around it. So that's really what the Desi Condition is. And also it's a little bit of a double entendre. So condition being like mental health condition, but also being the human condition. Things like motivation, aspiration, inspiration, all of the good stuff, dreams. So these are things that we like to explore on the Desi Condition. So on each episode, we try to scenario map somebody else's story, whether it's just like, a regular individual, like, or we've had a couple of artists before, like actors or musicians. So we just try to find all kinds of people and talk about their mental health or their Desi Condition, as we call it.
That's really cool. Tell us about some of the interviews that have stood out the most in your mind.
Yeah, well, some of the more recent ones have been pretty great. I got to interview one of my favorite artists, a couple of my favorite artists, Jai Wolf, Samir Gadia from what's it called, from Young the Giant. Maybe you should cut out my stuttering part. Yeah, some of those stand out. There's also ones that stand out that talk about, there's an episode that talks about eating disorders, and that's like a really hard one to listen to because it's just so raw and emotional. There's also another one about alcoholism and drug abuse. And first of all, the guest is like so well spoken and so charming and funny, so it also makes for a good listen. It was one of the very first episodes, but that's a fun one for sure because it's because of who the guest is, and also just because you learn so much from it. You know, I went into that episode thinking that I wasn't going to relate to that at all because I've never had a drug abuse problem, but it turns out like, yeah, I really did. Like I could relate to a lot of the things that she was saying about anxiety and how so much of her, like the substance abuse came from this anxiety that we all feel. It just manifested in a certain way. You know, for some people it might manifest as a drug abuse problem, for someone else it might be an eating disorder, for someone else it might be just like a chronic depression. It's like you never know how people feel the same things but express them in different ways. So that was like a big lesson for me.
Yeah, and when you mentioned these just now, I remember listening to those episodes, and I thought the same thing, like that everyone kind of lets out their struggles in very different ways, and it shows how different people's coping mechanisms really are. Yeah, it's interesting to see how people actually cope in such different ways. You've also recently launched the Desi Collaborative on your website, which is a way for South Asian creators to get more involved and connect with each other. So tell us and our listeners a bit more about that and what you hope to achieve with it.
Yeah, so I think you need to rewind a little bit to the Desi Condition, but it also that whole mission kind of comes from this sense of community that we are trying to build within this sphere of mental health conversations. And the more you feel like you can relate to each other, the more you feel like you have a community, and the easier things are to cope with. So I kind of took that idea of community and just ran with it for the Desi Collaborative, which is a kind of directory, kind of like event space as well, for different conversations or seminars, tutorials, things like that, for creatives, like professional creatives, to meet and collaborate with each other, maybe support each other. And it's also a directory of those people, totally free to join. You know, anybody can do it, as long you just have to like submit a picture and like your website, the bio about yourself. But it's just, you know, sometimes you are looking for a specific skill set, and so we're hoping to build that directory. So we have a bunch of people in there right now. It's like a really nice collective of people. I built this thing because I have my own experience as a creative. So I went to art school and I became an industrial designer there, but I just realized when I was there looking around, there were just so few brown people, which was really interesting to me because we're so creative.
Yeah.
And we're just like so like colorful and very loud about that too. But it was in Philadelphia, and there's no shortage of brown people in Philadelphia, but they just weren't at the art school. So that was very interesting to me. And so I wanted to show that it's okay to go into these professions. And yes, there are many lucrative professions in the arts. So that's a place for people to realize that if they're just interested in it, they can see all these people who are doing it successfully, or reach out to them, talk to them, you know?
Yeah, that's really cool. On that point that you said where you didn't see many brown people in art school, it reminds me of, not me because I did a very brown people subject, I did accounting, but my brother is an architect and he went to uni here in New Zealand, and he had no brown friends in his class. And I asked him about that once when he was at uni, because a lot of my uni friends were brown. And he just goes, oh, there's no brown people in my class to be friends with. And I was like, oh, because architecture, I guess, in some ways is very similar to industrial design. It's like, it's looked at like a little bit too creative, you know, and a bit out of the box for brown people to have a steady career in, which is strange because he's got an amazing job now, which he got from his degree. So I kind of get what you mean, and we have that problem in New Zealand, so I think it's a bit of a global problem.
Definitely.
So is your website only open to Americans, or is it open to people from all over the world? I think we cut out there. Is your website, is the Desi Collaborative open to just Americans or people from all over the world?
Nope, we've got people all over the world.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a good way for then people to connect
Mm-hmm.
with people that you wouldn't meet otherwise then, I guess, if you're from all over.
Yeah.
So moving on to a bit about yourself. So you've mentioned in quite a few of your podcasts actually that you've made a few career changes in your 20s. And they've been quite different, from being an industrial designer to now a high school math teacher. What prompted you to change careers?
Yeah, I know, it's nuts. Like, you look at my resume and it's like, what is this person doing? Are you okay? Yeah, I was an engineer first, and I thought it was very interesting, but it wasn't fulfilling. So then I decided to run the other way I've always been very artistic. When I was in high school, I took art every semester, and like I was doing it kind of freelance on the side for a while, especially between jobs, like because I had time to do it. So I've always been really good at art. And so I thought, let me explore that, but still do it within the world of engineering. So what I was doing was basically consumer product design. And so it was still very artistic, and I still got to have a handle on engineering stuff while I was doing that, which I wanted to do. And then I realized that neither of those things were really right for me, because it's all kind of, I could talk about this for like hours, but I think what it boils down to is that there wasn't enough of that sense of community that I keep going back to. And so now when I'm in the classroom, I'm teaching, like I get to make connections with the people around me, and I get to like connect with the kids, and I'm obsessed with them. And it's just more personal, and it feels like I'm making more of an impact. It feels like I'm doing something that I'm supposed to be doing, rather than really I was just adding more garbage to the world. I mean, that's what you do when you make products. Like, I hate to say it like that, but it did not feel like I was really contributing something useful.
Yeah, I think a lot of jobs kind of become like that as well, and you just become like one cog part of the bigger wheel. And yeah, I think a lot of people also in their late 20s and 30s sometimes get to that point where they also don't know if the thing they studied at university and the career they had was the right thing for them. So it's really cool to see that, you didn't just think about it, but you actually went and did something about it. You went out there, you changed your jobs, which is not always easy, like just starting a new job in a different field from the beginning again, because, you know, you might not be successful at it, but it's good to see that you put yourself out there and did it, and that you're actually loving what you do now. So, yeah, it's scary, but
yeah, I mean,
quite
what's
often
the
it works out.
alternative though? Like,
Yeah.
change nothing?
Yep.
That doesn't seem reasonable either. So
That's
gotta take
very
those
true.
chances.
So you're an Indian woman in STEM yourself, obviously. What's your experience with it? Like, do you find there are many women in STEM, especially Indian women, or like how are women compared to men in these type of jobs treated?
So my experience was that I was mostly surrounded by white men. And then there were like a couple other jobs where it was a little more diverse, but still not diverse in terms of gender equity, just more in terms of race. I did experience that, but it's definitely very isolating. I was oftentimes one of the youngest people there, and also the only South Asian. And I don't know if this happens in New Zealand, but in America, like the pay gap is very real. And I experienced that at one of my jobs as an engineer. There was a guy who, same qualifications as me, like same age, everything, just in a different department. But we worked on a lot of jobs together. So we basically had the same job, who made so much more than I did. And I didn't learn about it until like my last week or two when I was there. It was like completely by chance that I figured that out. So it's like, these are things that, you just feel like, why am I even here? What am I doing here? when I'm not valued the same as my male counterpart in a very, very similar position. So there's that. And then there's also kind of not being taken seriously. Well, not getting the same pay is not being taken seriously, but not taken seriously in other ways, even when your pay is what it should be, because you're a woman. Like, and people don't think that you can do it. I remember being in college, and as a mechanical engineer, that's like the major that has the fewest number of women in it. You know, you go to other STEM fields, you might look at biomedical engineering, and it's like 50-50 men and women, which, so that sounds like a lovely place to be, but that was not my experience. I graduated one of 4 women among like 35 guys or 40 guys. So it's isolating. And I remember some guys sometimes said really inappropriate things like, how did this girl like make it to this point, or like, you're flirting with professors type of thing, like insinuating these very inappropriate things that were obviously not true. So it can be pretty isolating. But then again, like when you're able to do it, you prove that you can prove that you belong there, because some people do recognize that because of all of that oppression that we face, you have to really know your stuff to make it to that, you know, graduation day, or make it to that higher position. So on the other side, it's like people really trust you because you're a woman. So there's perks as well, if you're, depending on who you're dealing with.
Thanks, Tanushree. Speaking of women that we are, I just wanted to ask you that, going back to your podcast, right? So it's about mental health that we've all been facing. Have you noticed any significant differences between a woman who's a migrant versus a woman who's stayed all her life overseas? And by overseas, I mean, you talk to multiple guests from over the world, right? What are the differences that you've seen between these 2 women? One who's a migrant and one who's Desi, but who spent all her life in a Western country.
I think probably the difference that comes to mind to me is just balancing a bicultural identity, really, and how they deal with that. I haven't noted any other real differences.
So when you mention a bicultural identity, what kind of stigma arises when a person has to face bicultural identities? What kind of, often what happens is we have to suppress some things within ourselves just to make a place for ourselves in the white world. What kind of stigma do you face in that situation?
Yeah, so exactly what you said, feeling like you have to suppress yourself, but some stigmas, in America, there's a term called ABCD, American Born Confused Desi. I'm sure you guys have heard of it.
Yep.
So that's something that comes up. And then there's either you belong to the brown people, or you belong to, or you're whitewashed, or you belong to like you always belong to a community. You can't really just be, you're like the token brown friend, or if you're not, then you're something else. Like you've adopted an identity that more fits in with the Black community or the Hispanic community. Like there's always some kind of label on you, I feel. You're not just like some kid that, you know what I mean? You just kind of, you don't get to just be you. You have to have some label. Like people love to categorize South Asians. So we do it to each other too.
Of course, yeah, because I think in Melbourne things are getting better, but there's a lot of classist movement that I see. There's a lot of differences that we see. But as being a podcaster, we have this platform where we can do a lot of change, right? We can initiate change, bring about that movement, about advocacy, about these things. How do you propose that we do it, since this is a topical issue? Especially I'm very concerned about women's rights and women empowerment. How do we bring about this change where a woman doesn't have to feel suppressed, or she doesn't have to feel that I have to belong necessarily to any community per se to existence in a white community? How can we propose on doing that?
Representation. Just a lot of representation. I don't know, I guess for me, it was being the only brown girl in my major
Mm.
or in my office. It's like being the one Bengali math teacher in my school, like, for example. You just have to show up in places. Being the only brown person in my building at an art school, you know, I mean, those are my examples. It's just, you just have to show up in places and not be afraid to show up and just prove that you belong there. Act like you belong there.
Nice. And you also mentioned that you made some career changes, which is quite interesting to hear, because a lot of people are put in the box very early on in our careers because of that mindset that we bring upon from our mother countries. I won't name specifically which countries, but you have to cater yourself to one or two specified degree. But that mindset is still prevalent, Tanushree, because I'm from India, right? So if I go back to Delhi, that mindset is hugely prevalent. A child has to crack medical or engineering. Now banking has come into the line. How can we promote this idea back home that, you know, getting into arts is also a good thing to do? That won't starve you. You can still earn your bread and butter. I know we speak from a position in privilege because I'm in Australia. I can keep on harping about this. You can keep on saying all you want in the US,
Right.
but how can we ensure that actual message reaches the grassroots level in Southeast Asian countries?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we do come from a place of privilege. It's hard to comment on this. What I will say is that we need to show the examples. I think people are, okay, so on one of my episodes, there was a comedian who came on the show, my friend Anish Mitra, and he said something interesting. He said that his parents or somebody else's parents are afraid of their kid, for example, becoming a comedian because they don't know what success looks like as a comedian. So they literally just need to see examples, and then they can be happy for their kid and be more supportive for their kid, and understanding that this is the right fit for them and trusting that they can get to that place because if they've seen examples of success in that field. I think essentially, he's right. To me, in my mind, it's about educating people on what does that career even look like and what a success in that career look like and how can that be reached. Because I think South Asians, like, they maybe just don't really know what you can do other than engineering or law or medicine. Those are the safest options that are very lucrative, but that's not necessarily true. They just need to see them.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll come to you in a second because just so many questions in my mind. Last year, I spoke with someone from Mumbai, and the topic that we'll be speaking on the podcast was South Asian parents and therapy. And when I started talking to that individual as a guest, I just realized that one topic in itself is a Pandora's box because South Asian parents and therapy, they're like two parallel lines. I don't think they're converging anytime soon, right? Would you have this idea somewhere? Would you like to bring this topic on your podcast about getting a Southeast Asian parent and talking about mental health and therapy, since your podcast basically talks about mental health?
I would love to do that. One of my guests did talk about her parents going into therapy, and it was after they suffered like a really big loss. I mean, her brother died, so you know, it was something really tragic happened. But she did talk about her parents going to therapy, which I thought was really, really interesting. I would love to showcase more examples of what it looks like for, you know, this older South Asian generation to be in therapy.
I agree. I think we all keep talking about our own therapy. Obviously, we therapy because we all have trauma inside. That's what I realized. All of us have trauma inside of us. But more than us, our parents also need therapy to just break the chain of intergenerational trauma that they just keep on passing away as trophy.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I think one last thing for me, Tanushree, is about women of color, right? And women of color in STEM. How do we encourage more women of color taking up STEM? Like, I know what difficult journey it has been because I did my PhD from Melbourne. Very difficult journey, uphill task, no place of kind of, 1 minute of relaxation. But how do we encourage other people, especially from the other countries, to take up STEM in Western world?
Yeah, I think that it kind of goes back to representation, but we have the internet, right? We have the internet. We can search these people up on LinkedIn. Like, we can just try to find somebody that kind of looks like us and is in our field. We have social media. We can advertise ourselves and like fashion ourselves as like that engineering girl. I don't know, I'm making up like a weird Instagram handle right now. But we can not be afraid to show our successes so that other people can see what success looks like when it looks like them. I think it just goes back to education. When I say education, I mean educating people about what success looks like and representation. Forming a community. People need community ties. I think those things will do that.
Speaking of success, I know looking at a successful career is amazing, glorified and everything. Isn't it time we should be talking about our failures too? Like, it's okay to fall down. It's only when we fall then we realize how hard it is to get up again.
It's just as, you're so right. It's just as important. Yeah, we need to have people who showcase their journeys. It's a little bit what I'm trying to do with the Desi Collaborative too. It's like people should talk to each other about their journeys, their failures, their fears. People can be open.
Coming back to your podcast again, Tanushree, so in all the interviews if you've done, how much of the Desi culture can have an impact on the mental health, and why don't we talk about it more often?
I think it can affect mental health a lot, because if you think about our history, there is a lot of trauma that a lot of people went through at the same time. I'm Bengali, so the Bengali Liberation War was more recent. Bangladesh just became a country not that long ago. People remember it that are alive today. It wasn't that long ago.
I know.
So yeah, I mean, of course, and there's a lot of trauma, and it's kind of like out of a need to survive that we rely on things like going into medicine as a way to secure your future. We don't have the capacity to talk about mental health when we are just trying to survive. I think that's really what it boiled down to.
I also find, like, in our generation, I find like our generation is a lot more open to therapy and counseling, or even, venting out to your friends about whatever problems you've got, more so than our parents' generation. And that goes into that whole intergenerational trauma thing, right? Where we kind of grow up thinking if we ever have a problem, we can't talk to our parents about it, or asking your parents to go to therapy is like you have to think 10 times before you even ask them, because they're probably going to say no. Like, in your experience from doing interviews with people, and also your experience of just being an Indian person growing up in America, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think our parents' generation and the older generation just don't want to have those deep and meaningful conversations, whether it's with family or professional therapy?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think part of that is that they haven't seen, they have only seen examples of people who receive psychiatric help who are very visibly disturbed. The other part of that is I have found that the parents are not as intolerant about therapy as I would have thought that they would be, but with some stipulations. So they are tolerant of it when they realize that it's something that their child needs, for example, or a loved one or a family member, but they would not accept it as a solution for themselves. That is still very much common. But parents want the best for their kids. So eventually people kind of relent, is what I have found. So I think that it is changing a little bit.
Tanushree, I don't know how our experiences differ, but when I talk to people, I feel our parents, I'm kind of generalizing that all of us are in the same generation. Our parents have a difficulty in a lot of things, accepting therapy, expressing love. You won't see our parents expressing love openly. Like we walk in and out and say, "Oh, I love you." No, you know that, right? Our parents have that innate quality. Our words express that way. Why don't we have to say it out loud? Do you think you mentioned about the Bangladesh war? And I spoke to people about the partition, 1947 partition, and not speaking about that, I realized what kind of a trauma it has on all of us, people who have seen, who've witnessed that division. Why does the past affect us so badly? Why can't we just let go of our shackles, let go of something that has happened, and try to, kind of heal ourselves and also try to heal the next generation? Why have we hung ourselves so tight for the past?
Trauma leaves a mark on the body. And there have been studies it's kind of an emerging field, epigenetics, on, for example, people who did not experience the Holocaust, but perhaps they're offspring of people who went through it, and they do have heightened anxiety and like heightened other mental health issues. That is why wouldn't that also be true for the South Asians? It has been shown that mental health does have a physiological effect on the body, as well as the mind, of course. So when your mind isn't totally there, then it's going to change how you act towards others, it's going to change how you act towards your kids. So I think that's why it's so hard to let it go. I obviously didn't live through the partition. Like I didn't live through the Bengali Liberation War, you know what I mean? But like I still feel what my parents went through.
Yeah.
It's stuff that they talk about. They talk about it a lot.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Because the same thing, my grandmother was like 10 years old when she had to kind of leave the country overnight because of the partition. So we keep hearing those stories, and they're not good stories. I can feel what she was feeling that night in 1947. I know, but I think we have hung ourselves too tight on the past, and we all do in our lives also. Break up somewhere, it just kind of breaks up. So I think we need to release our shackles. One more thing I would like to know from you, Tanushree, since your podcast is about mental health, women of color who are still single. Again, going back to our Desi roots, this is a big mindset that we have, that by an XYZ date and age, you have to get married. You have to have children. Any other person or a woman or a man or anybody who tends to move away from this, movement is often deemed as not doing something normal, and that automatically puts a pressure on the mental health. Have you ever discussed anything like this on your podcast? Or if you haven't, what are your individual thoughts on a woman who's single and who belongs from a background of color?
We kind of touched on something tangentially related with Radha Patel, the founder of Single to Shadi, which matches, it's basically a matchmaking service for South Asians, New York, New Jersey, basically the US, and I think Canada as well. And she talked about kind of her process of bringing people together according to both kind of what the parents want and the family want and what they themselves want as individuals. And she kind of talked about her interview process. And she also talked about her approach, which is very much not putting, there's very much an emphasis on not putting pressure on the individual. It's very important to her that she interviews people alone and not with their parents when she is trying to figure out how to match them and how to create a profile for them. I think that this is really important that she does this. My personal view is that, well, the way that I have avoided this conversation with my parents is by continuously going to graduate school. I have just been in school. I'm in school right now. And so I'm like, no, I can't get married. I'm in grad school. I'm still working. I'm busy. And they're like, oh, okay, fine. But I'm 30 now. And I'm nearing that age where I'm gonna have to have babies really soon if I want them. But I don't want biological children. I don't really think I want children at all. So for me, it's like, yeah, I'd like to get married, but what is the rush? If I don't have this biological, constraint, then what's the rush? Why not wait until 40, 45? What's the difference? That is not something my parents like to hear. They are very dismayed that I have these thoughts.
I know what you mean, because not my parents, luckily my parents are quite liberal that way, but when I was a PhD, random people have come up to me and said, oh, are you doing this just so that you don't have to get married? And in fact, when I speak with other guests on this platform, a lot of women have the same issue that, I'm just amping up my education so that I don't have to kind of get married. But do you think this comes as a disadvantage for us, like women who are trying to make up a life out of ourselves, not having to have a dependent life on somebody else? Do you think this is an excuse people just shove it on our face that, oh, you just want to avoid marriage, that is why you're amping up your education?
Yeah, it's insane, because how are you still centering? I'm getting my second master's degree because I would like to do that. Mm-hmm. How are you still centering my life around some imaginary man that doesn't exist? It's absurd.
Yeah.
They've got anything to add here?
Yeah, I think I can not so much relate to that, but I agree. I mean, personally, I'm married myself, but I didn't get married until 30, which in a lot of Indian cultures considered old to get married.
Geriatric, basically.
I know, but what I guess in my experience, what some people don't realize is that it's not all up to me, right? Because sometimes you haven't found the right person, and et cetera. But yeah, I've got friends that are in their 30s who are single, and it's just, yeah, it's like they're constantly being told by their parents, oh, if you want kids, you should get married sooner rather than later. And it's like sometimes to the parents, nothing else matters other than getting married and having kids before 35. Yeah, and I think it's a mindset that a lot of Asian people go through all around the world.
Yeah, they want to see me settled, they say, before they die, but I don't know why marrying someone means I'm settled and not.
You are settled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a whole budding career ahead of me. Yeah. I don't know why they don't think I'm settled.
You don't need a man, and similarly, a single man doesn't necessarily need a woman to get settled. So we have
exactly.
Tanushree, the other thing that I am quite passionate about is the LGBTQ community. I still know that a lot of the Southeast Asian countries have their own, I have to use the word perversion versus community. They don't accept them with open minds. Have you spoken with anyone on your podcast from that community who has had a mental issues, opening up to their parents or anything?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So we did what I call a mailbag episode, which is when we have like a few different guests on and we just compile it into one episode. So we did have a woman on the show who talked about being bisexual. And we also had an episode with AC Desi, which is a organization / like kind of social media profile for an organization that really shines a light on asexuality or aromanticism within the Desi community. So they were really interesting to have a conversation with, because, in America, I don't know if this is an American thing, but I think that it is, but asexuality was defined as a mental illness, because it was thought that if you don't want to have sex, it's because you suffered some kind of sexual trauma. But obviously that is not true. People are different. People come in all shapes and forms and sizes. So they were really interesting to have a conversation with. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely still open to continuing that conversation over and over as many times as we can.
I always fail to understand this. Why do South Asian parents have this problem of accepting their child for who the child is? Is the intergenerational trauma speaking behind, or what is the mindset that goes on in their mind when they're ready to disown the child just because the child doesn't fall into the binary norm of their understanding? Why do we have these parents who are so resistant, Tanushree? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's conditioning. So I guess that's part of what the Desi condition is. It's also the bad stuff. Right? conditioning from society. You know, people ask that question, what will people say? What will people say? I guess really the question is, why do we care so much what people will say? Because ultimately that is why we worry about these weird things like sexuality.
Yeah.
Oh, she's frozen. But I think what Tanushree was saying is right. I think a lot of it has to do with not them. Sorry, Tanushree, we were kind of ramping up the conversation while you froze for a second, but I totally second you there that it's a lot to do with, you know, log kya kahenge, the external society mindset. Who even creates the benchmark for society? And this is a conversation I keep having with my father, that who sets the benchmark for the society? We create the society. We don't have to kind of, you know, abhor or get succumbed into the pressure.
Yeah, people tend to care about what their society and community think so much more than the actual household's happiness. And I've had that in my own experience as well, not with my parents, thank God, but with other people in my family. Oh, if you do that, what will this auntie say? And what will that uncle say? And my response to that is, well, I don't care what's going on in their household, so why do they care what's going on in this household? You know, people put on a show in public, but you never actually know what goes on within their house. You never 100% know. And that's, you know, you need to think about your own family and your own kids' happiness before you worry about what society will talk about for 5 minutes.
I think it's also to do with where we are raised, Tanushree, because considering that Harita is an Indian generation, but she's raised in a white country, raised in India, but I've migrated. So it's a lot to do. People in Southeast Asia are still society dependent. We can't just easily say, I don't care and walk out of the house. That whole mindset has to go away. And that's why I asked you in the first that when a woman is a migrant, she undergoes a lot of mental changes because the whole community mindset is different, right? So, but thank you for your valid points, Tanushree. It was so fun to have you. And for me, it's a Saturday morning, a beautiful conversation to start with. Before we wrap up, can we please get you to spell out your social media handles so that anyone who's listening to us can just reach out to yourself?
Yes, you can find me at Instagram and Facebook at THEDESICONDITION, the Desi Condition. You can also email us at thedesicondition@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at TDCpodcast_.
Thank you, Tanushree. That was awesome. And for our listeners, sorry, Harita, you were saying something?
I was saying thank you so much for your time.
And something for our listeners, for those of you who heard us for the first time today or tonight, depending on wherever you're listening to us from, I really hope that you liked what Tanushree had to mention. Like, she's literally opened a Pandora's box about mental health, women of color in STEM, people in arts, and so much more. But these conversations need to be had regularly. This is not a one-off conversation. These are generic, regular conversations this generation needs to have so that we raise more awareness. And for those of you who've heard us for a while, I really like what we produce on the table, the content that we like on the table. So if you've got any thoughts or feedbacks, please write to us at coconutchats@gmail.com. We're also available on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Feel free to connect back to us. We look forward to hearing from you. We will be back again shortly with another interesting conversation on Coconut Chats. Till then, we are living in very troubled times. It's very, very important that we take care of ourselves and we spread love and humanity among ourselves in the society. So thank you, and we will be back again shortly on Coconut Chats. Thank you.
Bye.